This is another offering from the Academy of Self-Awareness series, which represents an egalitarian community of individuals whose consecrated lives are devoted to the truth of being for the betterment of mankind as a whole. The title of this offering is Moving Away from the Darkness of Gross Unreason Towards the Light of Pure Reason by Gordon Gardner. Equanimity is a natural spiritual rhythm which allows composure of mind regardless of the essential stress of living. Moving away from the darkness of gross unreason towards the light of pure reason requires that our minds be disconnected from the false doctrine of dualism and that we reconnect to the pure consciousness of holism. The consciousness of holism is always tending towards a greater awareness of the higher realities, and as it widens the gap between the real and the unreal, the ideal and the less than ideal, this ever-expanding awareness has nothing to do with realism or idealism, but is a realistic, idealistic look at ultimate reality. Ultimate reality is a consummate interconnectedness between the fathomlessness of nature, the universality of mind, and the limitlessness of spirit, which together are the consecrated substance of all form. Autonomous human beings are therefore a consummation of nature, which is energetic, mind, which is holistic, and spirit, which is dynamic. Autonomous persons are therefore energetic, holistic, dynamic human beings who are fulfilled with love, secured in wisdom, and freed by truth. It is most essential, however, that these autonomous persons live, move, and preserve their beings where and when the infinite here intersects the eternal now, wherein their holistic minds are without boundaries. For them, the duel of duality between good and evil, should and shouldn't, past and future, God and devil, etc., is over, because of the nature-mind-spirit interconnectedness within their energetic, holistic, dynamic consciousness. Every moment we humans either advance or retard the consciousness of humanity, in exact accord with our individual and collective feeling, thought, action. It requires the undefiled feelings, the consecrated thoughts, and the exemplary actions of autonomous persons, meaning self-governing, if humanity is to develop the consciousness of holism. Autonomous persons have realized that within their singular beings lies the cause of harmony or disharmony, grace or disgrace, ease or dis-ease. They have attained the full realization of spiritual depths and are therefore able to create an affect in exact accord with the way they imagine and like existence to be. In other words, as self-governing persons, they have developed an aptitude to create an effect in their own image and likeness. They have transcended the need for mere survival and are now able to prevail over their environment, produce their reality, and preserve their individuality as originating independent persons. By constantly improving their attitudes, they continuously refine their feelings, which unfailingly perfects their actions, although they are not perfectionists. Having recognized the unlimited human potential, these self-governing persons are always tending to develop a greater awareness and a vaster comprehension of their individual potential, which allows for a goalless and guileless progress, unimpeded by the goal of perfection. Those who cooperate with their own unlimited human potential have no need to compete with the goal-oriented personalities who suffer the guile of ambition. For the self-governing persons who have developed the virtue of cooperativeness, the clues are in, the riddle is solved, equality is established, individuality is substantiated, originality is demonstrated, liberation is attained, and a providential awareness is granted. If you are not self-governing, your life is likely a morass of indecisiveness because you are floundering in an information overload of diametrically opposite ideologies, and you are probably suffering the distress of a blind faith, vapid hope, loveless charity syndrome. This great and crucial conflict often results from compromising your integrity, competing with other confused personalities, coping with limitation and ignorance, and finally copping out through medication or worse, alcohol and drugs. Another more than likely futile attempt at coping with life is through the mediation of priests, clergymen, psychiatrists, and other equally impotent personalities. As soon as we come to the final apex of awareness, we realize that life is an individual proposition, and living it with spiritual integrity is the sole obligation of each person, and no human power can relieve us of our self-inflicted dilemma. Within our individual selves are the psychological prompters that block us from the liberating light of pure reason, and which keeps us in bondage to the darkness of gross unreason. Moving away from the darkness of gross unreason towards the light of pure reason means each individual must let go completely of all cherished ideas, ideologies, beliefs, concepts, opinions, conclusions, assumptions, and all other emotional intellectual attachments. At this moment of surrender, the determined intellect ceases doing battle with the capricious emotions, and the emotional intellectual umbilical cord is severed from people, places, and things. The great and crucial human dilemma is an emotional intellectual plague which is epidemic on planet Earth today. It is in direct proportion to the degree of dependence the gullible masses have placed upon man-made ideologies. They are all man-made, and upon the fabricated gods, which are a devised device employed by some to control others. Self-governing persons brook no control from the credulous doctrines propagated by man, nor from any of man's fabricated gods. Self-governing persons have transcended all the levels of godhood and tapped into the infinite, ultimate, eternal Godhead, which is an impersonal, evolutionary, primordial, solitary force field of unlimited creative potential that these self-governing persons employ in all of their deeds and dealings. The impersonal Godhead is the everywhere present consciousness of holism, which is an applicable energy that is susceptible to being converted into productive matter by way of any self-governing person's feeling thought dynamic. In other words, the undefiled feelings, which are motivated by infinite love, the consecrated thoughts, which are activated by eternal truth, become the exemplary actions which are actualized by ultimate wisdom. The divine triune of love, wisdom, truth is the everywhere present consciousness of the Godhead, which is a single unified life force field of unlimited creative potential, in which and through which all beings live, move, and maintain their existence. Any and all human beings are given being simply for the joy of expressing the love of existence, and for that reason alone we each must prevail over our environment, produce our reality, and preserve our unrestricted individuality. The solitary Godhead in which we are all immersed and with which we are all imbued is the immanence of transcendence because of the absolute indivisibility of unrestricted individuality. In other words, the consciousness of the indivisible Godhead and the awareness of the individual person are inseparable and undifferentiated one from the other. Ultimate reality is a nature-mind-spirit interconnectedness wherein the one implies the other in a reciprocation of complementary qualities, which is the ground of human awareness and the substance of human form, as well as all other forms, of course. It will be the age of light when we each realize that every human being is a child of light. Then we shall emphatically state, and with cosmic impunity, that the I am that I am is identical with the I am that I am of the Godhead, for I am the singular issue, and the Godhead is the solitary source which makes each of us a source-issue conscious awareness. Solitary Godhead, in which we are immersed and with which we are imbued, is the consciousness which creates, the life which immortalizes, the love which fulfills, the wisdom that secures, the truth that frees, the spirit that purifies, and the power that personifies each child of light. To be a realized child of light is to be able to create an effect in your own image and likeness, which simply means as you imagine reality and like it to be. A realized child of light has transcended the mundane law of cause and effect, and is now able to operate the celestial principle of create an affect by simply inducing meaningful coincidence upon the environmental scene. Such a meaningful coincidence is actually a cooperative incident, which is a state of spontaneous synchronicity between spirit as energy and nature as matter, within mind as the cosmic matrix. Matter is simply energy in perpetual motion, and what keeps it in motion is thoughts, which gives meaning to the maxim, thoughts are things. James Allen understood this maxim in the following poem in his book, As a Man Thinketh Reveals. Mind is the master power that molds and makes, and man is mind. And evermore he takes the tool of thought, shaping what he wills, brings forth 1,000 joys, 1,000 ills. He thinks in secret, and it comes to pass. Environment is but his looking glass. The only thing to fear is the ego self of personality, which is only capable of misqualifying the creative potential. So know that fear is a reaction to an illusion. It need not persist. With a little awareness, it is easy to resist. Fear is an impostor that can be made to cower if we continuously contact our higher power, which is an inner power that reveals the sublime when we cease being prisoners of space and bondage to time. Fear and guilt is the dark source of all our ills, while the light of divine will is the source that fulfills. Self-governing persons have severed the emotional, intellectual, umbilical cord from people, places, and things, inasmuch as they are no longer deluded by the illusion of fear and the intrusion of guilt. These integral human beings are immersed in love and imbued with truth. It is only when love is penetrated by truth that the human psyche and the human soul are wed, and only then is wisdom conceived and is ultimate reality attained. Love is the essence of nature, wisdom is the essence of mind, and truth is the essence of spirit, which together is the divine triune and very substance of all form. The conditioned minds of non-autonomous persons are incessantly reacting to the fear-guilt-hate syndrome. This fear-guilt-hate syndrome is constantly bedeviling the restricted personalities who make up the puppet masses. And it was Kyohan Gibrian who stated, "Man invented hate and he gave it a name, he called it the devil." So therefore the devil is a fabrication of the reactive conditioned minds of puppets who use it as a scapegoat and poor excuse for their inappropriate behavior. The creative principle intelligence power of the solitary Godhead, in which all of form is immersed and with which all integral human beings are imbued, knows nothing of this fear, guilt, hate conditioning, nor of the fabricated God-devil syndrome, which emanates from out of the mass mind sphere. If you realize the eternal truth that releases the soul, the realization shall bind you back to the solitary Godhead and free you forevermore from the false doctrine of dualism with its good-evil, God-devil inanity, which is the malevolent breeding ground of all insanity. The integral persons who are imbued with the creative principle intelligence power of the solitary Godhead are skeptical of the blind faith, free from the vapid hope, and innocent of the loveless charity which is propagated by the followers of Paulinism under the guileful guise of Orthodox Christianity. The conditioned minds of those who lack the creative intelligence of self-governing persons are tethered by prejudice based upon the limitation and ignorance of one false doctrine or another. Planet Earth is a vast theater and endless emporium for the entertainment and supply of integral persons who are no longer attached to the sophistication and glamour of the mundane and who do not take themselves seriously. Integral persons have nothing to prove. They have no desire to impress, and life for them is not a popularity contest. As integral persons, they never complain, they expect nothing, and they appreciate everything. Every breath they breathe is an affirmation of gratitude, and every affirmation is a declaration of independence. Each moment of life for them is a gestalt, inasmuch as their minds are secure in the here and now, without regret for the past and without anxiety for the future. They have come to the full realization that of and by themselves they can neither know anything nor can they do anything, but the Godhead in which they live, move, and preserve their integral beings knows all and does all. In other words, they listen to the will and act with the power of the solitary Godhead, in which they are immersed and with which they are imbued. This, of course, means that self-governing integral persons cannot have a separate reality from ultimate reality, because their ever-expanding awareness is inseparable and undifferentiated from the ever-altering consciousness of the Godhead. This makes each of them a unique, distinct, and peerless personification of the Godhead, which means their feelings are undefiled, their thoughts are consecrated, and their actions are exemplary. And this is the unlimited human potential of every human being, which is why the principle of karma and reincarnation must be fully understood if the human soul is to get off the wheel of birth and death. The human soul has one eternal life, but it must undergo many births and deaths until it becomes the Lord of Karma, living at the apex of awareness known as immortality. Karma and reincarnation are simply the pause for correction on the road to perfection. But perfectionism must be avoided at all costs. Perfectionism is a state of atrophy which is already beginning to decay, and all orthodox religions are guilty of the guile of this malevolent traitor to spiritual evolution. It was Carl Jung who said, "Religion, if nothing else, is obedience to awareness." So therefore, the only purpose of any religion must be to arrive at the apex of awareness known as immortality. The masses who trust the orthodox doctrines of fundamentalist religions are credulous fools. It is only those who have realized the infinite love, the ultimate wisdom, and the eternal truth of the solitary Godhead who are fulfilled, secure, and free. The solitary Godhead is an impersonal providence which provides all of the needs of self-governing persons even before the need is known by these trusting souls. Spiritual maturity requires the complete coalescence of the nature, mind, spirit, substance within the conscious awareness of self-governing persons. This coalescence is a consummate blending of the love, wisdom, truth essences throughout physical, mental, and spiritual bodies of integral human beings. Integral human beings no longer have a fake ego to be centered upon, they no longer have a false self to be conscious of, and they no longer have a counterfeit personality to be in identity crisis over, inasmuch as they have each established an awareness of the permanent identity of their higher self. Moving away from the darkness of gross unreason towards the light of pure reason requires that we, on an individual basis, tap into the root of knowing at the core of being. If we cling to the limited human view of the way things seem to be, it will cost us the knowledge of the way things really are. Once the veils of limitation and ignorance are lifted from our single eye, the light of pure reason flows into the inner ear. The depth, the height, and the breadth of ultimate reality floods the mind with an ever-changing spectacle of innovative wonder, far too marvelous to define because of the inadequacy of language. The realization that the living universe is a single, correlated cosmic event floods the awareness of the individual who has truly come home to the habitat of peace from whence we began our journey as pilgrims for a time and space. The infinite withinness of ultimate reality is revealed to the single eye, and the music of the spheres fills the inner ear, while a state of being consciousness bliss transpires throughout the individual awareness. It is obedience to this ever-expanding awareness that gives meaning to religion, because the unrestricted individuality of the person is at long last bound fast to the absolute indivisibility of the Godhead. An interconnectedness between the individual person and the indivisible Godhead, wherein the one implies the other, is a reciprocation of natural spiritual qualities, has created a state of at-one-ment within the consciousness of holism, forever free from the doctrine of dualism. We do not lose sight of the material world, but only our limited view of it, based on our limiting five senses. With our outer senses enhanced by our inner senses, we now know that the material world is a lower vibration of the spiritual world. So if you do not like your view, you must simply elevate your viewpoint until you can see reality from an infinite eternal scale of observation, rather than from a finite temporal view. Spiritual adepts have transcended all of the theological nomenclature such as Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, Krishna, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, Allah, Jehovah, and any of the other named deities which the credulous tend to worship. Moving away from the darkness of gross unreason towards the light of pure reason reveals to these spiritual depths the nature-mind-spirit triune of the primordial, evolutionary, impersonal, nameless, formless Godhead, which is the infinite eternal consciousness of holism. The universal mind is the equable interface wherein the energy of spirit and the matter of nature continuously interact as impressed thoughts become expressed things. Mind is the master power, and man is the master mind, who thinks in secret, and it comes to pass. Environment is but his looking glass. The human brain, because it was derived from the universal mind, is a feed-forward, feedback, cybernetic system, an instrument for questioning, speculating, and pondering upon the marvels of creation, as well as the source of all that is created. The truth is that the Creator, all that is created, and the totality of creation is the consciousness of holism, with all three states in itself, since all three states are a single interrelated cosmic event, which is ever expanding and ever altering, where and when the infinite here intersects the eternal now. The consciousness of holism is the universal mind, which is a cosmic matrix and solitary source, from out of which every singular issue originates. The Godhead is the solitary source consciousness, and all of the manifestation is the singular issue awareness. But only the human brain can be conscious of this absolute consciousness. Every form throughout the mineral, plant, animal, and human kingdoms has consciousness, but only those who have attained spiritual adepthood can be conscious of consciousness. This requires an alert instinct, an aware intuition, and an awake integrity within a physiological, psychological, ontological being capable of understanding the nature of existence. The 12 governing principles essential for spiritual adepthood are creativity, detachment, fortitude, discernment, order, love, power, imagination, enthusiasm, trust, understanding, freedom. These principles must function simultaneously, not sequentially, although the more adept a person is at adapting to change, the more spontaneous life shall be. I thank you very much for your attention.